Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today I'm participating in the Merry Everything Crafting collaboration hosted by Katie from Lady Red Crafting, Lisa from Our Gray House, and the guest host is Catherine from A Perfect Place to Start. I'm going to be doing 3 projects today, a little bit of a rustic Christmas here. Now you might have seen these flocked Santas at Walmart, and I really don't like the flocking. I want what's underneath here. So I was trying to scrape it off, and doesn't really come off that well. So I'm going to take some fingernail polish remover that has acetone in it, and I'm just going to test here on the bottom and see how it goes with the Q-tip. And it seems to be coming off pretty good. So I'm going to add a little bit more. So I think the trick is just to put it on here, let it soak in for a little bit, and then it just comes right off. Look at this. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this because you can see there are lots of areas here to get this flocking off of. All right, here he is. He's red underneath. Now to go on the fur part here, that was really hard to do, so I had to use a toothbrush. So now I'm going to do my plaster color here from the Waverly chalk paint, and I'm probably going to have to do maybe 3 to 4 coats to get over this red. But I want to go ahead and, instead of doing all my different colors, because he is going to be painted, with reds, and he's going to have a flesh-colored face and everything. But I just want to get a good coat on here. All right, he is done. I did end up having to do 4 coats. So for his face, the color I'm using is Santa's flesh. And I'm just going to probably have to do a couple coats on here. The next color I'm using is deep burgundy. I'm going to paint the hat and his bust area, I guess you would call it, since we're only getting like the shoulders here. And I'll probably do a couple coats of the red color. Then I just mixed a little bit of the Santa flesh and the deep burgundy, and I'm going to go on the inside of his mouth here with that. So it's just like a little light pink color here. I'm going to do a bit touch up there with the Santa's flesh. And the next thing I'm going to use is brown iron oxide. And I am going to paint his eye color on. I'm going to give my Santa brown eyes. Since I have brown eyes, he's going to get brown eyes. And then I'm going to go in with the plaster color and paint in the white part. And then I will dot the eye with some black. All right, now that that is done, I'm taking burnt umber and I'm going to paint the pedestal. Probably have to do a couple coats of this. And you might have noticed that I did paint those jingle bells because I'm going to cover that up. Now that Santa is all dry, I'm going to take my dark antique wax and I'm going to cover the whole Santa bust with it. This gives it a little bit of a rustic look. Now I am going to take this little mini tree skirt that I got from Hobby Lobby. I like the way it looks. It's fur, faux fur. And I decided not to do the fur part up there, but I'm going to use this and hot glue this on. And I'm also going to cover up those jingle bells with it too. So I'm just going to cut this to the size that I need. And I'm going to hot glue it on. And I'll also put a little bit of this fur down below the beard where he has the fur on his jacket. I'm going to go ahead and get this finished here. I'm going to cut off just a little bit. And then I need to hot glue the top part. I'm going to use this piece for down here, so I just need to cut it to size and get it glued on. And I took a little piece of that fur and bunched it up, and I'm just hot gluing it together to make a little ball to cover up those jingle bells. All right, I think he is so cute. Now I want to do some embellishments down here. So I'm just taking some scrap pieces from picks that I have and just going to hot glue them on. I'm going to go ahead and add some berries. And I also want to put a little rusty jingle bell on here, but before I do, I made this little bow out of some raffia. I'm going to cut off the excess and scrunch it all up. And this is where the bell is going to go. And then I'm going to use a few more berries to cover up on the top of the bell. Here's how he turned out. But you know what? I'm not liking the beard at all. It just doesn't look right to me, especially with my fur being that light color. So I'm going to change that. I'm just going to take some of my plaster color again with a stencil brush, and I'm just going to pounce on this plaster color until I get the desired color that I want on his beard, mustache, and his eyebrows. Here's how he turned out. I think this looks so much better. You can still see some of that little bit from the dark antique wax on there, but this blends so much better with the fur. Now let's do DIY number 2. So I have these plastic ornaments, and these little pieces here came off of curtain rods here at my house that I changed out. And I'm going to make little finials. Now I want to make these rustic, so I'm going to paint my ornaments with the color burnt umber first. So I'm probably just going to have to do a couple coats here of the burnt umber, and then I'm going to go in with some other browns and make it look rusty. So I'm just going to get both of these painted up, and while they're drying, we will work on the bases because they will be a different color. So I'm taking my plaster color again, and I'm going to put a couple coats on each of my little bases. Now that my ornament is dry, I'm going to take the color nutmeg and I'm going to take a stencil brush and I'm just going to pounce, pounce, pounce. Then I'm going to take the color autumn brown with another stencil brush and go over that. Then I'm going to take that burnt umber color again and go over that a little bit more just to tone it down. And this is going to give my rust look. So I'm going to go ahead and get both of these finished, and then we'll go on to the next step. Here's how both of them turned out, and now I want to take some of my matte Mod Podge and do a coat on here just to protect it since I am painting on plastic, and any little scratch can make the paint come off. So let's get a good coat of Mod Podge on both of them. Since I'm waiting for the Mod Podge to dry on the ornaments, I'm going to take some sandpaper and get both of these bases distressed. Next, I'm going to take my dark antique wax and I'm going to go over both of the bases. Now I'm going to take my B7000 and I'm going to put a lot of this glue right here on the inside of the edge. And then I'm going to glue in my ornaments. I did go ahead and add a lot of hot glue on the outside just to reinforce it. And now I want to decorate these to coordinate with the Santa bust. So I'm going to use the same type of greenery on here. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want to put this greenery on. I think I'm going to have to cut it. I thought I could just use that big piece, but it's just a little bit too big. So let me go ahead and get my pieces cut. I also want to cover up where you can see the hot glue, so I'm just taking some jute and I'm just going to hot glue it on and wrap it around a few times and tack it down with more hot glue. Since I'm only going to be decorating one side with a greenery, you'll see all that nasty hot glue sticking out on the other sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the greenery glued on. I am going to use some more of the raffia, but instead of a bow, I just made a little knot, since these are a little bit shorter, and just hot glue them on. I'm going to add some berries. These are a little bit lighter colored than what I used on the Santa. I'm also going to use some more of those rusty jingle bells. I have some in a little bit smaller size, so they get one here. Go ahead and get the berries put on. All right, so here's how they both turned out. I think these look so cute. And they coordinate really well with my Santa bust. Now, DIY number 3 and my last DIY. Now, I cut out these mitten shapes many years ago. I was going to do something with them last year. I painted them red. Yeah, we're changing them. They're going rustic. So we're taking that plaster color now and going to do a couple coats to cover up this red, because at this point I hadn't decided if I'm going to print off some paper from Creative Fabrica or use my scrapbook paper. So I decided to use my scrapbook paper, because if I print it off you might see that red, but this is so thick you won't. But I wanted to put some sheet music on here, and I just happened to find this in my stash. So I'm just going to trace around both of the mittens and cut out the scrapbook paper here. Now that I have it cut out, I'm just going to Mod Podge the paper onto the mittens. Now that it's dry, I'm just taking some sandpaper and roughing up the edges of the mittens on the paper part. The next thing I'm doing is taking my dark antique wax and going around the edges of the mitten, and I will do the outside edges also, and just a little bit on the scrapbook paper on the inside of the mitten, just in a few spots. The next thing I did was add some eye hooks here, and I am just using some jute that I'm putting through the eye hooks and tying a couple knots. So I want to hang these mittens. So just trying to figure out the length I want. And get it tied off and cut off the excess. Now I'm going to be hot gluing some more scrap pieces of the same greenery that I've been using on the other two projects here. I have some more of those berries. I have some the rusty jingle bells. And I'll be adding one more piece of greenery that I didn't use on the other two projects. And that is these little holly leaves. So I'm going to add a couple holly leaves to both of the mittens. I'm going to add some raffia. I will do a little bow, just like I did on the Santa. I had a little bit too much there, it was too thick. Go ahead and get the other bow made real quick and get these hot glued on. Now I'm going to glue on my berries. And I took these rusty jingle bells and I took some rusty wire and put them together here. And I also have a little faux pine cone here. Go ahead and get the other one done real quick. And here's how my mittens turned out. Oh, I think these are so cute. I love every single one of my projects. Let's see how they all turned out together. All right, my sweet friends, that's going to do it for the video today. I hope that you enjoyed it, and please be sure to check out everybody's videos, I have the playlist link down below in my description box, along with all the host channel links. I want to wish everybody a very wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.